Greetings everyone on YouTube and welcome to this interview video with me, Kemsit, and of course, Black Knight. Now, of course, you don't hear him because the reasoning behind it, he's unable to join the Discord, and we have not really had any other alternative voicing way that we could chat, and of course, he's busy and all that to do this interview with me. So I just asked him if he could just answer the questions for me that I've sent him, and I'm gonna do the interview by just asking the questions and act as if he's here and read the questions for you guys, and of course the answers. That also said, I will definitely post the answers down below in comments along with his mail, because that is where you can contact him if you have any questions regarding his campaigns, because as you can see, he has made quite a lot of them over here, even though most of them are in Chinese. There are only 3 of them which are English, which is really saddening as we cannot really play to them. And like we have also mentioned, or you've seen, I cannot barely pass through his Scannerback campaign, which is really difficult in my opinion. But his Yelf Dashi campaign is definitely nice. And really doable in my opinion. Just try that out and see for yourself how it is. But that also said, do lend me your ears and some time of yours, and take something snack or something to drink, or even just keep me on in tab and listen as we're gonna be answering some proper, give some questions and heed some nice, interesting, answers from our creators of these custom campaigns, who are definitely voices that need to be heard, and inspiring people, who also creative people who made a lot of interesting, points of view of leaders over here. Now, I'm going to quickly tab out and just read the first question, and then guys will be able to hear the next, how should I say, answer as soon as possible too. The first question would be, what sparked your interest in creating custom campaigns or scenarios? Was there a particular game or a moment that hooked you, or a certain historical figure, perhaps community that inspired you? Now, his answer is, first of all, Age of Empires 2 has been my favorite game since I was a child when I grew up and had spare time. I just learned that Definitive Edition was released, which inevitably got me hooked. Creating custom campaign is a lot like writing a book for me. I wanted to be a writer when I was little, but the books I wrote were terrible and none liked them. So I finally chose the Age of Empires 2 scenario editor as a medium to express my creativity. My passion has always been the same realistically. Stories full of dramatic tensions, only the express has shifted from words to the game. That's definitely uh, an interesting answer, honestly, and a very creative one. And it's also saddening to hear that he has not really got so much success from books. But I guess it's just simply because people do not really like to read much, honestly. I think in this period of time, people tend to do much more, especially with social media, like to enjoy watching videos, etc., or keep them on in alt tab, lurk around and all that. Or sometimes it just does not really speak too much, and some books speak more to another and some don't, which is really saddening. So I definitely would encourage to try it a different, or if you say, I don't really see any hope, just continue on with the campaigns. And yeah, I definitely want to say you're definitely a nice artist over here overall. Moving on to the next question. Where do you find most inspiration from? Perhaps certain games or books, movies, or real life events. Now, this is a very interesting answer he's given. For me, real events in reality history are the best source of inspiration. When you read a lot of novels and various masterpieces such as Romance of the Three Kingdoms, definitely interesting period, The Red and the Black, 100 Years of the Solitude, etc., you will eventually find that the stories in these novels are not even 1/10 as exciting as some real historical events you find on the Wikipedia. In my opinion, fiction is fiction after all, and reality can easily surpass the limits of ordinary human imagination. I'm fascinated by the choice made by real historical figures in real historical events. I believe that if you can understand why people who achieved a great thing made those choices at specific points in time and space, you can draw wisdom from them to benefit your own life. Exactly. I truly, truly, truly agree with you on that, especially since with Three Kingdoms period, which is a real horrible period to live in if you're just a regular peasant. But overall, that period was definitely very chaotic, and it just got very good for certain people like Sansa, in my opinion, who is very much villainized and marked as a traitor. But on the other hand, he has been very crafty to try and unite the people all over just for the greater good. But some people were just either too jealous and too down looking towards Sansa, especially with his background. For example, Liu Bei, who was very ambitious and very nice persona, but honestly, you cannot just form an empire if you lack the ambition as a leadership. Who was compensated with other peoples like Zhuge Liang or Pang Dong, um, who did all the pulling, but even then, Liu Bei was just superstitious instead of a rational leader. But on the other hand, it was just good in my opinion. And Sun Chen, well, he was good, but yeah, he was just living in a bad period for himself, and he just had bad bases, and he just, in my opinion, had daddy issues, which is okay. And yeah, he was managed even to actually continue on for some time. Eventually, just lost and all that. But yeah, it was just sad. Yeah, but on the other hand, it was definitely an interesting period. Same thing for the interesting period of the Red and the Black one and 100 Years of Solitude. And with that said, we're just going to move on to the next question. Oh, and one more thing. It is definitely a good initiative to take inspiration from historical people and take inspiration from them too and move along from there. Um, I should say we're gonna move to the third question. Then my favorite works in Yellow Dashi. Oh wait, actually, can you tell us about? Can you tell us about one of your favorite creations? That was the next question, by the way. His answer is this: my favorite works is Yellow Dashi. First of all, Yellow Dashi is a historical figure I really like. He is not a stubborn brute, but a pragmatist who knows how to act expeditionally and has a very tough character. He is the only one in Chinese history, and probably rare in the world, who has successfully built a new country in the place after his own country perished. Secondly, I'm from Xinjiang, and it is really cool to deposit my hometown in a campaign, finally, the campaign itself, from a game design perspective. Yellow Dashi is a very well structured, with 3 Mongol missions and 3 Tato missions. A smooth plot, a cohort beginning and end, and the theme piece is well conveyed. The only regret is that some bugs have appeared in the campaign with the game updates, and I'm too lazy to fix them. Now, honestly, I definitely respect it and enjoy it. It's the same thing how I feel with Cao Cao or Balboor, or in my opinion, Tamerlane, for example. Same thing for Genghis Khan. It is the same thing in my opinion how I feel with Alexander, but of course it is portrayed a little bit differently, and all of them are in a different situation. For one, his father just got assassinated. For him, the whole world collapsed, and he saw his father as a great inspiration and all that, and he just built another empire just to make him, his people, his father, in his opinion, happy, or he just wanted to leave a legacy behind the world. That is obviously what everyone tries to do. Same thing with Genghis Khan, or for example through the dynasty of the Ottomans, for example, or for example Willem from Oranje from our own country here in the Netherlands, or overall with Saladin, for example, how he just tried to beat away religious oppression, for example, or how Richard Lionheart was a very stalwart leader and all that. There's so many more other figures we can just mention on contributing their own way to their communities, or try to leave a legacy in this world, each on their own way, each with good and bad signs, which has to be weighed down, and the inspiration we can take, learn, and move on with, of course. With that mentioned, we're going to move on to the next mission. But before that, I want to also mention Yellow Dasha was really well made, in my opinion. I think I did really well. I was not struggling too much, in my opinion. And the campaign was really nice. And I would definitely like, here, let me just show you. advise everyone to try even go forward through that because it was really nicely done. Now, with that said, uh, you're not really lazy too if you're not really willing to actually try to fix something, because I can imagine it's just discouraging when every time the game just updates and it just breaks you. And of course, the creators are not doing this intentionally, but it would be nice if this really does not ruin them. And I hope you'll try to find inspiration actually to try fix these changes even if they happen, because it will just offer consistency of having a campaign still up to date, still able to function well for everyone still to enjoy, because it will be pity if they will not be able to do so. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next question. And what is your most favorite campaign from the classic? Now he says, this is a difficult question because I like many of them. If I had to pick one favorite, I choose Alarico. Okay, he's the tuppy version of Yellow Dushy. Alarico, I think that is word. Wait, maybe it has some mistype over here and it's autocorrect over here. But hold on, is it like that? Oh yeah, here, yeah. It is meant to be Arariboya. There we go. Well, yeah, he is also very interesting uh, uh, picture of how he has definitely gone forward too, and taken them down honestly, and that's really nice. And yeah, I definitely agree with you. We're going to move on to the next question, which will be the question number 5. What is your most favorite custom campaign scenario? It can be your own or that of someone else. He says this. Actually, I rarely play custom campaigns by other creators because I want to keep the characteristics of my own work. So I can only choose one from the few campaigns I have played, the Italian Wise by Anatol. Now, honestly, I would highly encourage you to try it at least more. Push yourself to do it, see different perspective, and of course, you can always offer your own opinions and thoughts, and to have more interactions between people, and maybe you can, take inspiration from there too. So don't be discouraged simply because you want to have, keep your characteristics. But I understand the reasoning behind that. And honestly, the Italian Wars, I think I've not been able, yeah, I don't think I've been able to play it because it was on Chinese too. So yeah. Venator is also a good reader. Now moving on to the sixth question, I've hardly encountered any difficulty. No, wait, we have to read the question actually. Frick. What has been the most challenging moments in journey as a custom campaign or scenario creator, and how did you overcome them? Now he says, I've hardly encountered any difficulties. The biggest problem is not enough time. Making a fully length campaign alone is so time consuming that by the time the officials release the next DLC, I haven't finished the custom campaign for the previous DLC. How did I overcome this problem? I can't overcome it. I just hope I can get rich someday, and then I will have plenty of time to make my favorite custom campaign. Now, this is really difficult because time is, again, like it says, it's just really time consuming, and every update or every DLC, it can just screw up so many of the campaigns. It's how should I say, triggers, or when there's a big overhaul like the recent Navy overhaul, it can force the creator needing to change so much and readjust their campaigns, throwing away the balance as well. You need to do like so much more work on it. So I definitely understand him. And honestly, I think you can still overcome it. I think it's just, you're just so, how should I say, frustrated about the situation. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna toss this out of the window. I understand that there's a perspective, but try to, chill down and go forward bit by bit, honestly, because we definitely appreciate you, and you guys are cooks. I mean, not cooks, but artists who definitely should just continue on, not give up in the first try. That is all I can say. Now, moving on to the next question. Have you collaborated with other creators? Yeah, if yes, what tips would you give a successful partnership in the community? If no, would you be up for collaborations? Now he says this. Yes, I have collaborated with Ilum on Harald Hardrada, and there should be an English version of his of this works. You can try it if you haven't played it. My advice for you, cooperation, is that I think you should let your partner create freely and just do your part well. Now, first of all, I have actually played Elim and Hard Hot Rudder campaign, and it was really amazing. I definitely had a lot of pleasure playing through it, and it has also been perceived well by the community. I have like more than hundreds of views on all those videos all over, and many likes overall. But of course, that's for my perspective, and goodness for me. And I definitely did enjoy it, and I've not really been able to contact with Ilum. I definitely want to also do how should I say, um, how should I say, yeah, here, hold on. Let me see. He's also a very much known campaign creator. Hold on, where is it? Here, hold on. Let me just write it down. Harold Ardrada. There we go. Now here, the English version. Now this is from Ilum himself. I've never been able to play it through, and this is one of his campaigns. I was also trying to contact him, but I've not really found his email or any way else I could just try to, contact him. And it would really be nice if we could just try to go forward with it. But you have definitely gone forward. So if you have also his contact information, especially like mail, please do try to send him my way or anyone else, because I would like to have a talk, because he's a legend. Like, look at this. Look at that too. It really speaks so much. And again, these are like old campaigns, and obviously they receive so much downloads as time passes by. But on the other hand, like I said, I've definitely enjoyed this campaign a lot, honestly. And our old Hadrada is definitely a nice figure too. But I also agree with you that you should, leave creative freedom to your partner. But at the same time, I think it's very important to have some proper communications and a middle ground together if you have a disagreement together, and try to always look at the bigger picture, in my opinion. But yeah, moving on to the next question. What advice would you give to someone who just starts out in the custom campaign scenario creation? He says, my advice is to make the theme and gameplay you like, and don't blindly pursue illusionary things such as technical skins, design sense, and gameplay. Your ultimate goal is your own happiness. I agree with that. When you're new, try to jump in, make something, cook something. It doesn't matter, because you're trying to learn how to cook, right? When you learn how to cook, stuff can burn. Stuff can taste bad, too salty or too sweet. Just try to mix something up together. You're an artist, you're trying to draw. When you try to draw, you won't learn it at the first time. Maybe never even, or you will draw, but in a style that not many people enjoy. Just try to go forward with it, because a shot never fired is always a miss, guys. Try to get that, and that is what he has said over here. When you design a scenario or campaign, what comes first for your gameplay-wise challenge? Storytelling, historical accuracy, or fun, and why? Now here is his answer. I kind of agree to it. Storytelling comes first. As I said before, I care about the choice made by historical figures in specific time and space scenes. So storytelling and historical accuracy are very important, but I will sacrifice historical accuracy to make the story more logical. Why? Because some historical facts are too messy and boring, and some historical facts are simply fabricated by records for certain purposes. So how the emotions I gain from historical prototypes to players through the game. The most important thing is to tell a good story, not to show off book knowledge. I agree with that. People tend to want to have uh how should I say, a great storytelling, but also historical remarks as well. That's what I always say. Like, try to have more historical remarks, or storytelling. But I prefer to have historical remarks on top of storytelling, because it can obviously cause a lot of confusion and cause people to say, now this is what really happened, even though it's not that true. But that is also why I also encourage, like, when you see something that is portrayed in movies or whatever, try to see if it's even true as well, and try to see different perspective too, because you're trying to gain some inspiration from it too and learn from it, because many historical facts can also be fabricated just to be elevating a different community from one side in hopes, to make them look very legacy like. But that's just, fake news, in my opinion. And that is something that Black Knight here over here represents truly very well. And of course, we don't want to be just sitting over here learning for some books, because no one likes to read. Well, not many people likes to read books often, and that's just a simple fact. Now, moving on to the next question: what tool triggers or editor features do you rely on most, and which ones do you wish were improved? Now, in my opinion, this is what he says: modify attributes and scripts call should be the two most important triggers for me. Points I hope to be optimized many times to draw a good looking forest. The trees and the terrain under them are drawn separately. It will be great if there is a function to customize what terrain is under the trees, just like the beach type. I honestly agree with that too. Now, we're gonna move on to the next question. Let me just see. Hold on, where is this one? Here. Has player feedback ever made you rethink or redesign a scenario? And can you share us an example? Now, his reply is this: never, because wait, what the frick? Never, because I think if I find it fun, that is fine. If players have problems, that's their problem. After all, these are free mods campaigns. I won't fix bugs caused by game updates in old campaigns either, because it's not fun for me at all. I understand that. Of course, custom campaigns are free, and many people, like Lorenz, have also mentioned, and I think here's also what Black Knight mentions too. We're not getting paid at all. We're not really receiving any kind of form of monetary support. While the other creators who are also behind the Forgotten Empires and the DLCs, they're receiving at least a little bit of monetary support, which is a bit unfair, and I think it's also a choice, but this is also something that needs to be kept in mind, in my opinion. Whenever you're going to make something, you should try to also have um, some way of a middle ground together with the community, because that is what we also can see throughout the gaming industry, that lately there is an upper hand of players who do not like a game and they won't support it or buy it. They'll just refund it and they just get out of it and move on to a different game. Forcing the creator to rethink certain mechanics or gameplays, or how we have seen that lately the rise of DLCs and an argument and reviews that it can force change into certain things, be it with Paradox or Creative Assembly or with Blizzard and Sega and whatever. Like I said, it forces them to change. Even Firefly had to change certain things or be considering at least. Even Ubisoft, but Ubisoft is still in denial at the moment, in my opinion. Um, but that's why I think it's really important to try to still find a middle ground, to try and see, like, hey, if something really does not really work well for me, or they find it a bit too difficult, they should try to you should try to change that, honestly, because it just not gonna work well, especially with design wise as well. But yeah, that's an opinion which we leave at here. Um of course, like we said, we also spoke about the updates. Whenever the updates come, it's going to ruin for you, and of course, it's not fun for you. But you know, try to pull up that lag and just go forward over here. I'm gonna move to the next question. How do you approach balancing the difficulty so a custom campaign and or scenario is challenging but still focused on a fun aspect for a wider audience? Because we want to focus on a wider audience. That is my main point. That's what is important. Never, because I think I find it fun. That is, oh wait, no, he says, I don't really care about challenging or fun. I only care if the difficulty is reasonable based on storytelling and historical accuracy. For example, if the AI players is Mehmed the Conqueror, the final boss in the Scannerback campaign, I will design him to be very strong. If he is a bandit, he is destined to be easily defeated by the player in a few hints. Honestly, that is a nice perspective, but at the same time, it's still not a middle ground because it's just heavily leaning to um, going to over top, and that's the point what I'm trying to get. Because I'm sorry to say this. I get that you're trying to explain the time with Scanner Bag on how his life went through, especially with the first mission, like I mentioned. Certain titlement that we have ranked up were not really making sense. And I get it that you just want to make like a nice mechanic over there, that's okay. But try to then make a little bit more sensible titles too, because they do exist throughout the Ultimate Cult. Um, and that also mentions it's the same thing with certain battles that have been chosen. I think there could be far more battles chosen for Scannerbeck because he has also won some more better battles against the Ottomans that can be portrayed there too. Let alone that in the final mission, it was just a little bit over the top. Like, yeah, you want to make them a little bit of a challenge too, but try to offer the player to at least um overcome these channels and win. And at the end, you just say, hey, this is how it really went. Because that is how Age of Empire, its classic campaigns were, right? You play through them, you beat them, and once you finish, it offers a nice little night story from, hey, this is how it really happened, right? With a dramatical hint and all that, and not just too, you know, age friendly for all of us, not too much vulgarness over there, too. But that is how it went. Like, of course, Mehmet is by all means not a bandit. He's a conqueror. He's like the great. He has literally just closed one period, opened another period. He has overcome so many challenges after many times of failing to take over Constantinople, and like many other ethnicities who have failed to take over Constantinople. He has done it. He destroyed many of the walls. He opened it up. He redesigned Constantinople. He even tried to conquer other lands. He even tried to take over Italy. He is, and who knows? Maybe he could have if he didn't die out of nowhere. To also mention, he has also destroyed the rebelling Beyliks. He has forced them to migrate and resettle in the Balkans, causing to create an influx of mixture of ethnicities and cultural exchange there, which we can still see architectures that are still present there in the Balkans, even though it's slowly being removed, which is saddening because those architecture there is just really good. But there are still some cities in the Balkans which are still very nicely made in a Ottoman style with mixed ethnicities, which is really cool. Or how he has been dethroned quite a many times and he just risen up back again, or like many more things we can say. And that's these are definitely very interesting um, things over here. And of course, one more thing I want to also say: many people also think he was very zealous. In my opinion, in my view, he was not really that zealous. Overall, he was definitely just using his religion, in my opinion. But yeah, on the other hand, we're gonna move on forward. The next question: how do you think you have been doing within the Age of Empires 2 content creator community, and what would you tell your younger self if you had the chance? Now, this is where the answer is. I think one of the strongest creators in the world, probably. To my younger self who just started out, I would say these 15 themes have already been made into campaigns. Choose some other themes to make. I honestly agree with you too. Especially if we're gonna mention, like, here, let me just go back to your campaigns. Now, Genghis Khan has been made to plenty of times. That is one thing for certain bybars. Well, debatable. I think it's just a matter of how it's being portrayed. But there's quite a few of them too. Other than that, I honestly don't really see too much of these kind of campaigns, especially for example, Arthur the Great, for example. Yu Fei, for example. I have not really even been able to play him, but he's also a very great figure. But I just don't really see an English version of it. Itzius, same thing. Um, Cyrus the Great, well, debatable, but still very nice to play, actually. I just really didn't had it. Scannerback, I didn't really see too much about it, too, but a definitely nice touch. But like I said, the story that you've also created as I cheated through the campaigns, it was really nice storytelling, but again, the execution and the playability, nope. I would rather than say just stick to making a book about him. I would read it, but playing his game, I'm sorry, my friend. I won't be able to play this. That also said, we're gonna just move on to the next question. And honestly, I don't really agree too much that you're the most strongest one. I will say you're one of the influential creators, especially within the Chinese community, because you have like so much downloads, and also for a beginning download, made here. Okay, I agree with it. You have like 1K, but at the same time, I don't wholeheartedly agree, but you are certainly one influential creator, especially within the Chinese sphere of the community or well, influence. We're gonna move on to the next one. Just drank some water. Sorry for that. Um, Hold on. I'm gonna quickly catch the other question here. Now there. How do you think you've been doing within the Age of Empires 2? No. Oh, you read that. Oh wait, you did. Why did it go back? Oh yeah, here. Now, there we go. How do you see the Age of Empires 2 HD edition's future? Now, he says this. This is really interesting, and it's something I share in common with not many people because many people feel a little bit threatened about this. But the future of Age of Empires, he says this. Some people think the number of civilizations in Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition has reached the saturation, but I don't think so. There is still so many civilizations to make, so many features to add, and so many stories to show. I think if everything goes well, this game can stay popular for more than 5 years. I agree with that too. And I think this game will stay alive for centuries to come until the end of human mankind, honestly. The only problem is, like I mentioned before, to many of the other content creators, custom campaign and scenario creators, like we've spoken previously, I think the main problem here is for the competitive side of the community is simply feels a little bit too annoyed that there are so many so many civilizations that do not really feel very unique anymore to themselves. They feel a little bit like copy and paste, and whenever they try to create them unique, they make them a little bit too strong. To also mention that it starts to feeling a little bit overwhelming that there's so many different, you know, uh, civilizations that they feel a little bit overwhelmed and find it hard to how should I say, cope with the amount of civilizations and strategies that they have to keep in mind. But I think they're managing just fine. It's just a little bit an overwhelming feeling, which, in my opinion, will go away in time. And it honestly will just offer more and more people to contest within there because that is how I feel. Of course, there's always gonna be those civilizations which are either not played or will be played. And this is the difference of Age of Empires between strategy games like Warcraft, for example, or Starcraft, that it still continues. It still holds that catch, right? It's still a game where you can still have so many more strategies compared to Warcraft, for example. And I think it will continue on that way, even if there's like heavy critique. But I think the critique is the middle ground is the balancing, and that some factions are not feeling that unique anymore or are released very unbalanced for sure. Pardon me. Moving on to the next question. If you could instantly change or add one feature to the Age of Empires 2 scenario editor, what would it be? Now, here is a nice answer that he has given. Customization trees to form forest and then customize the terrain under these trees. Now that's also something that will be very amazing too. Now, moving on to the next question. Are you currently working on a custom campaign or scenarios, and are you willing to share some juicy information about it, or would you rather keep it to yourself for now as you keep on cooking? Now, his answer, I thought it was literally saying goodbye because that's what we also saw in the Lost Scannerback mission, but this is what he said. I didn't know. Otherwise said I would say goodbye to this game in the Lost Level Scannerback. The last that was my decision before the Lost Chieftains DLC was released. Now I'm trying to find time to make a full-length campaign for the Topi civilization, but I can't guarantee that I will finish it. Now that's a really interesting thing, and I definitely would encourage you to go forward because, like I said, the Topi civilization definitely have many more possible protagonist stories or like historical figures to tell stories about and campaigns too. And there's many who we can name, even if it has been mentioned that there's just so few. Honestly, I disagree. It's just a maybe a lack of inspiration or so to portray a possible story. And if Blackknight over here finds a possibility, then I would say definitely go for it. I'm looking forward. Please keep me up to date. Now, with that said, I'll move on to mission. The next question. Is there something you would like to say to the community? Now he says, play happily and live a good life, of course. And the next question, is there a way people can contact you, like other content creators or those in the community who played your campaign and wanted to offer the thoughts, opinions with some constructive feedback, perhaps? Now, this is what he says. My email is 806318158 at qq.com. Now, that is definitely a nice email. I will also mention these answers along with his email down below so you guys can feel free to contact him there. Now, moving on to the next question. If someone considered playing one custom campaign or scenario in Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, which one would it be and why? Now, he says, I recommend Eumenes by Anatar, required the Alexander the Great DLC, because it is a very easy and fun to play. I played it a few months ago, and I don't know if the author has increased the difficulty since. Well, I honestly do not know. And that period of time was also very interesting. How should I say? Uh, thing. Well, Eumenes von Cardia, basically, I think is what is being talked about. Who is a Thracian general, of course. Who came after Alexander the Great. And honestly, I've not really been able to play through his campaign because if we're gonna look at this, oh wait, right, I'm just writing his name wrongly. Yeah, there we go. It's just only a Chinese version, so I cannot really make play through this one. I don't really want to play through it, but then it must be done in an English version, please. So I'm gonna try to also contact, because I've been given the contact mail from him, and see if he's also willing. I'm gonna ask him that too, or see if anyone else is able to translate it so I can try to play it as well, because it is also a very nice, interesting period that I also want to relive too. It is something that me and Chris Offers were also speaking about, because the Dark Ages campaigns are just really lacking, and it will be really fun to play them inside of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, now that we also have like those civilizations like the Thracians themselves, or the Athenians, the Spartans, the Macedonians, and the Achaemenians, and what do you call the other guys? The Puru people. And I think there will be more of those coming around as well, and I really hope they will. That mentioned, we're going to move on to the next question. And once again, thank you very much. I definitely recommend everyone to try this DLC too. But just like you said, make sure you have Alexander's Great DLC too. Now, with that said, we're going to move on to the next question. Roughly, how much time does it take you to create a full scenario or campaign from idea to release? Now, he says this. I have a very free, if I'm very free, I can finish a full length campaign in 3 weeks. Askia the Great was completed at such fast speed. If I have to work while making campaigns, it will still take months or even years. Now, that's definitely true. Very saddening that it happened to you, and something many people also struggle with, especially with Lorenzo, who, it just could consume so much time. And if you do not have monetary aid to survive and eat and all that and pay your rent, it can be really difficult for you as well. And yeah, I assume Black Knight also is like, adult man, and he works around in China, and he just tries to keep his a roof over his head while he's just following his passion and hobby to make creations. And for that, of course, we're very grateful. And honestly, keep it up, man. um, that also said, we're going to move on to the next question. What keeps you motivated to keep creating, especially during long, difficult projects? Now, here's what he says: my love for the game, respect for history, and to live up to the expectations for the players. Now, that's a very great initiative. And like I said before, keep that love up and keep the respect for the history along with the expectations for the players. And in my opinion, that will be a little bit of rebalancing of Scannerback, please, because I'm sure many more people will play that campaign. Um, because at the current state, it's just unplayable at all, and none will be encouraged to continue on. Even I was tempted to not even cheat through, just like when you've suggested it, to see how what kind of storytelling you have, and it was fun and all that, but it's just too difficult, honestly. But with that said, we're gonna move on to the next mission question. Have you ever knowingly or bent or ignored history to make a scenario more fun? Where do you draw the line? This happens often, and there's nothing I can't change from me. For example, in level 6 of the Scannerback, the Ottoman army is divided into Tatars, Cumans, Byzantines, Slavs, Bulgarians, and Turks. So why didn't I use 6 Turkish civilizations to play the Ottoman army? Because it will be boring. Because I can't move the Aztecs and Incas to the Balkans to be Scannerback's opponents. That's the so-called drawing the line. Now, honestly, I agree. And don't forget, the Ottoman army was not just a call of only Turkish troops. There's multiple ethnicities present there. They're just only trained in the standardized army, especially in a sense of Janissary corps, which were, basically guys conscripted, conscripted dot dot from the areas like the Balkans, but also around the Caucasus too, and of course the Levant. But there were also people who just free will, especially Turkish roots, who just joined that army and just started to train as a janissary. But there were far more different troops as well, because the Ottoman armies were often also joined by Crimeans and Tatars from all over the globe, especially the Crimean Khanate, or um, around Moldovan area, and the Caucasus, or even the area around the Egyptian, for people who had like Mamluk um, roots. So that's why I honestly liked it that you've made mission 6 like that, and it was very pleasant to see, because you know every kind of person, just like Skanderbeg himself, whose roots are of Albanian ethnicity. There were also those Bosnians who, of their ethnicity, who have contributed far too much great for the greater good of the empire, and the Kupurlu family have contributed like 4 successful grand viziers to the empire and tried to keep the empire elevated, especially with Selim the Drunk, as they know. At that time, it was just a very horrific sultan who would just barely contribute any goodness, in my opinion. But at that time, the empire was still elevated thanks to the Kopil family, because he was keeping it alive, and there was so much still great contributions at that time done by him. So in my opinion, these kind of figures definitely did great. And it is a nice way that you've definitely divided the cultures to represent different cultures around. And I honestly say keep it up, and it would not be really logical to add Aztecs or Incas around there. And of course, this is why I wish also for more civilizations to be represented, for example, Serbians, Croatians, because that is what Shakolin has also done, a campaign of Tomislav himself. Like, why is there no Croatians? There's a Bohemia, which is right now modern day in Czechia. That would be very cool too. And why no Moldavians, for example, like Romanians? Why aren't they there, for example? That would be also another an awesome faction, or like Wallachians. Overall, well, we have, yeah, kind of like Bulgarians and all that. But yeah, that's just it, really. So it's just really saddening, in my opinion. Let me just quickly read this. Quickly thingy here. Give me a moment. I'm just trying to get this. Blah blah blah. This question. Give me a second. Let me quickly get it. Ah, here, there we go. The list is here. We're gonna move. What was the single hardest thing for you to learn in the scenario editor? Now, he says this. I think everything is pretty easy, so that's good. That's understandable, especially compared to how it was before. That's for sure. But there's still so much more improvements, in my opinion, just like many of the creators have already mentioned. But yeah, if that's what he thinks, then it's an opinion. We're gonna move to the next question. Have players ever solved or broken one of your scenarios in a way you didn't expect? Now he says yes, this happens often too. I can imagine. Second last question. What kind of feedback or recognition means the most to you as creator? And do you have any questions for me? He says this. Both criticism and encouragement from players mean a lot to me, and encouragement means the most because I love being praised. My questions for you is which figure in which period of history do you like the most? Why do you have the urge to make him or her the main character of the game or write a book about them? Now, honestly, I have a lot. I have a lot of characters that I wanna mention, but actually just stick to the criticism. Definitely gonna. I've definitely criticized you a little bit, especially regarding on how you handle certain feedback regarding difficulty, and I definitely still will encourage you to try to change scanner back so everyone can try to play it. Because honestly, that campaign that you've made is definitely looking good, but it's just too challenging to try to finish and beat those missions. Um, and overall, try to also change the ranks within the Scannerback campaign that you can go through, because those ranks are not really well suited and are not really historically accurate, or someone could gain something like that easily or so, right? Um, Neither are they in the correct order, of course, too. But on the other hand, it is definitely a nice mechanic that you've definitely did, and I definitely would be able to help you if you would require and all that. Now here is my answer of which figure or period of history do I like the most, and why, and what urge would I have to create a character of them in game, or write a book about them. Now, here's my most interesting thing. I definitely like for example, funny to say, threat period. If I'm gonna look, I'm gonna go down from ages. For example, in Dark Ages, I definitely would say Alexander the Great was one of my most figure, and he topples up Julius Caesar definitely for sure, because in my opinion, Alexander the Great has been far more a person who has been you know conquered throughout so many eras. He has like seen so many wonders and done so much greatness compared to Julius Caesar, even though he has been also a far more greater man, but he had to go through many more challenges compared to Julius Caesar. Alexander the Great, in my opinion. And Alexander the Great just was, you know, just top notch in my opinion. And I'm not going to be creating any kind of books about him. And if I'm going to then move someone around other countries as well, because um, through ages, I would say Eumenes are also very good, or someone from the Seleucid empires as well, because the Seleucid empire is a very great period to also see, because they had also like a uh, great period. Seleucid empire dynasty basically. They were also like the claims who say like, hey, we are the proper heirs and comrades from um, you know Alexander, and they tried their best to stay alive and keep up, but they also had like their rivals from the Ptolemy dynasty too, and that was just a really interesting thing. And I definitely enjoyed those period of time, and definitely would like to see um, some more history about them too, because it's not really much represented, especially in Age of Empires One. I definitely seen them lacking there, and there's like a quite a nice influx of history being made right now currently, be it by Age of Empires 2 or Christophorus or other creators who are really trying to do it like Lorenzo. And that's really nice, and that really touches um, my interest, and also creates some inspiration in me to actually maybe try to write something myself about it as well. But I've not really got into it yet. On the other hand, if we're gonna move to a different age for, from the Dark Ages towards the medieval era and all that, more like 13th, 14th, 15th century, or even earlier, Genghis Khan was definitely a person who piqued my interest. Or like I've also mentioned, Tamerlane, just like you said, Yellow Dashi, to create a empire from nothing to something. Like again, Genghis Khan had so much stuff that he had struggled to and also lived, and then got nothing, then start to create a big ass empire. That is really awesome what they have done. And of course, many people will be like saying, "Yeah, they have genocided so much people and all that." I mean, who hasn't? Who hasn't? Honestly, you think the opposite party has not really done anything bad? Honestly, Crimea River. The exploding volcanoes performed a genocide against these dinosaurs. Do you think I'm gonna now kill the how should I say, all those volcanoes? No, I'm just gonna respect him. He's just a nice rival in my opinion, or a person that I could look up to, learn from. But of course, that's not what people really um, look at, or just always try to pinpoint or try to guilt trip. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to like make me bend the knee? Hell no. That is just something that is really bad in my opinion. And that's what I wanted to say, because Genghis Khan, like I said, he had so much different things and greatness he made. That also said, I think Batu Khan was also very great. Hasdrubal of the Assyrians, and Boudicca, for example, for the Celtics people as well, is also very cool ruler. Or Darius the First, Dido of the Carthaginians, and also a very good, like this is also some like a good leaderess, or like a or empress or so, as you would like to call it. Um, yeah, who else can I say? Uh, or for example, Hiawatha of the Iroquois. This is also an interesting thing, because I was always teached as well with Hiawatha at the early stages when I was around 12 in elementary school. So that is really nice to have a campaign about him too, but I don't really see too much about it as well. Who else can we say as well? Nebuchadnezzar in from the Babylonians, the second, could be also a cool campaign maybe. Or Pakal for the mines, a nice campaign about that too, because we don't really have too much of these kind of campaigns. Sayong from the Koreans, but then also Kim Shi-men, which is also something very cool. A great admiral who fought very greatness at the invasion of the Japanese, alongside with Admiral Yi Sun-shin, another great figure that will be very nice. Other than that, I think around Um, no, for India, I don't really know too much more people, honestly, but I would definitely want to know, or other Asian archipelago could be very cool too, but I don't really have much in my coming up mind at the moment. Uh, hmm. But I would definitely like to know more. For example, about Tibetans or any other cultures around those areas in Asia, for example, on top, just like we said, um, damn, that's really difficult, especially for around more African leaders as well. Could be very fun because there's just so much. Just like you said, Askia Songhai was also another great leader, and there's possibly so much more. But I just don't really. It nothing comes up in mind for now for me to speak about, right? But obviously another great like if I ever would be able to create also a scenario, like I've also mentioned in previous videos, I would have definitely created a video regarding the collapse of the Akunju Corps, because the Akinju Corps were actually the vanguard of the Ottoman Empire. They were the border guards of the Ottomans. They were the ones who actually started to the success and paved the way for the Ottomans along with the Seljuks, because they were also the core of that army. But the Akunju were not known at that time in the Seljuks. At the Seljuks time, they were known as Uchbey, or well, um, the flag carriers of that time. And they were raiders who used light weapons like maces, swords, bows, spears, along with many more other weapons, and they use light armor and all that. They are not heavy cavalry, just like Age of Empires 4 represents. It is something I've also created a video about not long ago when they released the Ottoman Empire, and I've literally even shown it through Wikipedia too, and also through other sources. And I have many more also sources that I could show, but sadly it's just going to fall into deaf ears. But around the 16th century, around 5595, at the Battle of Giurgiu, when they fought against Mihail Vitezu from the Moldavians with what was the uh, what was it called? The battle, well, the Battle of Giurgiu, of course, that's for sure. And what was the Grand Vizier's name? Ah, yeah, there, Sinan Pasha. Sinan Pasha ordered a retreat across the Danube River, but very late, because the Akunju and many scouts have already mentioned a military force of the leader from Mihail Vituzu already approaching. But that guy has contested it and still wanted to collect um, a warrior's pay. And warrior's pay is something that the Ottoman Empire has implemented a right for the leading officer. And at that time, the Grand Vizier Sinan Pasha was leading an army to pacify the Moldavians who were rebelling at that time. And at that time, the leader, or well, his opponent, was Mihail Viteazul. And Sinan Pasha has earned quite a lot of victories against him because he did pacify quite a lot of attacks. But Mihail Viteazul did not give up, so he just constantly chased him and tried to do some hit and run attacks against him, and eventually caught him off guard while he was collecting taxes on a bridge. And trying to collect taxes when your army is crossing a bridge is very dangerous, especially when most of the foot troops have been able to pass, but when the cavalry has not been able to pass at the moment, and then Mihail Viteazul comes by with a lot of cannons, how should I say, bridge is gonna collapse, and when that bridge collapses, those horses are gonna fall along with the men on top of them, and they're gonna drown. But of course, not all troops have still been able to pass, and according to many historians, um, they've already mentioned that more than thousands of men either have drowned or severely depleted their corpse, or just you know exploded all around, because like these men were just slaughtered and they just let into a lost charge basically of the samurai, for example, and they just died with honor, and the men across the river could not do much and just watch as their brethren died. And it's just like it could be like being a nice romanticized story, honestly. And it is just a sad accident because, like I said, these guys were, in my opinion, again, my opinion, and some historians agree, some historians don't, who were the core army. Because, like I've mentioned, they were the border guards, they were an infantry or, well, nobles who did not, you know, got any kind of military pay, whereas, for example, the Janissary always earned a pay. And on top of that, they also earned a bribery from every time a new sultan is appointed. So imagine if you're a Janissary, you would always wish that a new sultan was appointed and obviously would try to plot because anytime a new bribery would be offered, that would be like 3 months of a regular pay for us in this period. So you're going to be like receiving 3 months pay, like a vacation pay, and that's just a lot. And that causes also a lot of corruption and a lot of, destruction in there. That's why I don't really like Janissaries much, because many people are like, oh yeah, these guys are very heavily trained and they have like muskets at that time, which was unique, and they were strong with their kulich, their sword, and they were very disciplined. They had like this awesome red uniform with their funny hats and all that. I mean, like, okay, it's really nice, but they're just a little bit overrated in my opinion. And Akunju Corps, these light cavalry raiders, are the true nobles in my opinion. Existing of the Mihail Ollları, Turhan Ollları, the how they call, the others, I forgot, the Malkuchollari and then more. And there, of course, there were a lot more minor nobles as well, but they are also slowly uh, decreased from existing. Eventually, they also became settled and, created little towns or communities around them and farmed around, like throughout the entire empire. Because, like I said, each beylik at the time also had like Akunju corps, but they slowly, you know, removed, or eventually when Shah Ismail came around, many of those Akunji corps also joined him and turned into be like those redheads, of course. So it's just really saddening that this really happened, obviously, and I honestly wanted to see a campaign reliving the Battle of Gyeonggi, but then properly, not just like showing, hey, yeah, the Ottoman lost like a lost big against the Moldavians. Yeah, sure, you got a pat on your shoulder. It's just defeated such a massive army. No, I want a proper structure of why did this happen? Because Grand Vizier Sinan Pasha was also having a conflict with another Pasha, who he toppled off, by the way, with a lot of smearing his reputation and, plotting against each other and all that. And it will be very much more of an interesting thingy to show as well. And like I said, these Akunji Corps, in my opinion, were the heroes at that time. And the last, I should say, showcase at that time of hit and run tactics from the known Central Asia, with how the Mongols, the Timurid Empire, or every of the Golden Horde, or even the Ottomans even did with the Battle of Mohacs as well, did with a bit of hit and run tactic too, and that is what the Akunji Corps also did. And sadly, at the end of them came, because in my opinion, after that, many more incidents happened, especially regarding with some Crimean bridge incident happened too afterwards. So yeah, because with the Akunji gone, who will be holding the border guards then? The only border guards who would hold were the Delhi or the Bashi Bazuk, who were also very small kind of army, or they relied fully on Crimean Tatars, their help to keep the borders at pace as well. But they were paid troops and all that. So yeah, or like the Derbent troop. So yeah. But then that's it. We're gonna move to the last question. The last question is here. Do you have any keep any sort of notepad, Excel sheet for fixes or future updates, perhaps on creations you have in mind? And he says yes, he keeps them as well, which is an interesting thing to know as well, because not many creators have those. And it's definitely advisable because it offers some kind of disciplinary and a nice notepad, because we as humans can forget things as well at times. Even I do. Like I said, when I was explaining who I often favored very much in history and all that, I definitely forgot to keep this in mind. But with that said, guys, we're gonna end the video as well here. I honestly did not really have any kind of favorite kind of emperor. But if I had to choose, I definitely had to choose some certain people throughout history according to age who admire me much. And just like like we also said, for me it was Alexander the Great or Tamerlane, Genghis Khan, or any of the Ottoman successful sultans, by the way, because there's so many of them who are horrific. William from Orange, for example, for me, Richard the Lionheart, Saladin, Kim Men, or any of the other empires over here who definitely favor me. But it just doesn't really come up to mind because there's so many of them who each contribute greatly towards their community one way or another, and don't always try to guilt trip one another or trying to paint anyone fully bad. You should respect ambition, in my opinion. That's what we have to do, in my opinion, even if it not if it's not good for your community, because that is what I often see too much from other people. Like, hey, he has just beaten our asses off and they're just very bad guys. No, don't do that. Of course, certain atrocities can never be forgiven, well, can be forgiven throughout time, but should be acknowledged, apologized for sincerely, and from there on you simply move on. But also bear in mind that many other parties have done so too. But this does not mean you should constantly keep a grudge against each other. You should always try to find out if the other party is willing to, you know, take serious steps towards each other too. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be leaving the answers down below in the comments box below. So give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new and wish to support it. Do you want to recommend something we're going to come together? That's possible as well. Just write down comments box below or join my Discord server so we can have a chat about it. And until then, I'll see you guys later.